It's wonderful to see everyone, and the beauty of Venerable Pema Chodron's text, How to Meditate, just inspires me every time I dip into it. So we're coming to the end. I think we'll end at about the new year. And we were looking at Gotsampa's poem, which looked at all the different ways ignorance arises as classic triggers in our life, whether it's emotional, situational, health, a worldly, reputational, loss, any of those things arises to our confused mind as triggers. And he was singing a song of when we have perspective, we can see that they are delights. And she continues with a very, very brief chapter that gives a context of how it is the trigger can be simultaneously a delight. And this chapter, I think she calls it the bearable lightness of being, addresses for the first time in a very simple way the philosophical root point. We call it one of the four seals of Buddhism. We could say it's at the root of the Four Noble Truths. This quality of boundlessness, of emptiness, of the Sanskrit word is sunyata. Another translation might be the open dimension of being. So this aspect of Buddhism is a whole field of study that allows us to examine, is what we're perceiving what we think we are perceiving? And we did go into that really quite deeply when we were studying Shantideva, but it's something we want to go into over and over and over again, because until it changes our perspective, it's just an intellectual concept. So today I'm going to talk about it a little bit and use some examples to work with it. But essentially, what she is bringing up is that our perception in samsara is best described as co-emergent ignorance emptiness, or sorry, co-emergent ignorance emptiness, or co-emergent ignorance wisdom. That what we are experiencing is primarily relative reality, except for rare moments in our meditation. So we are in a state of ignorance because we are in duality, we are in samsara. Our mind is continuously reference-based. I am experiencing this, I am seeing this, I am hearing this. So there is an I and there is an experience. So we would say that is a false perception, a limited perception, but it is such a deeply held belief system, pattern of lifetimes, that it's very, very rare that we have an insight that it could be anything else. So there are moments in your meditation where you might have an opening to peace or an opening to spaciousness, and that might be a taste. But as soon as our mind wants to grasp that and thinks, I have experienced something, we're back in duality, we're back in confusion. So what we're going to look at this morning is, how might we find ways to use this truth in Buddhism that we only experience intellectually at the moment, that there is a vastness, to give us perspective on our daily life and those trigger points, and shifting our perspective into delight from being triggered. So I love the title of the movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. When we talk about the absolute, it is everything, everywhere, all at once, that there is a manifesting appearance, and that manifesting appearance can only happen in the womb of emptiness, in the spaciousness of emptiness, in the interconnected, interdependent movement. So it is something that is moving and shifting, and it's moving and shifting because it is empty. If there were an inherent existing reality, what we believe our relative reality to be, that couldn't change. So our minds wouldn't change, our dish would never break, the seasons wouldn't change. There would be an unchanging nature that remained the same all the time. So when we start to begin to explore emptiness, first it's with the understanding that when we talk about emptiness, we're talking about emptiness in a relational way to an object. Right now, this is a cup. If I were to break off the handle, it might be a vase. So and it's an electric cup. So one day the components of the electric cup will fail, and then it won't be a warming cup. It'll be an ordinary cup. So this cup, if I relate it in an unthinking way this morning, it's just my favorite cup that keeps the tea warm for the whole hour I'm teaching. And it is the same as when I picked it up. However, it's not the same as when I picked it up. The electric components are just a little bit older. There's just a little bit more tea stain in the cup. So we're invited little by little to examine how we think about what we're experiencing, and in particular, how we think when we're triggered to bring us back to a spacious, open quality. So I wanted, as you know, I'm very visual, so I wanted to talk about this in relation to what I'm looking at out my window, let's say. So keeping things fairly neutral. If I were just to glance out my window, I would see something like this. I would see a landscape, I would see trees, I would see a Buddha made of stone, and I would see the sky. And I would think, this is true, I'm directly experiencing it, it's a winter day, this is what the winter day looks like, and if anybody tells me it's different, I would say, no, this is what absolutely I can see to be true. However, when I'm thinking like that, it is a narrowing of my perspective, a tremendous narrowing of my perspective. It only holds a small portion of what even science would tell us is there. So I'm looking at the tree, and if I were really able to see the tree, that would be the molecules that make up the tree. So I'm only seeing something that I call a tree. I'm not seeing what's there at all. I'm only seeing a small portion of what's there, just the barest of the outside. That tree that's right in front of me also contains something like this. Similarly, I'm looking at the sky. The sky is blue. It's a really sunny day today. But my perspective is so narrowed by ignorance, I have no idea that what is actually there is something like this. So if I saw fully into the spaciousness of the sky, it would go beyond our atmosphere, beyond our small solar system. What is scientifically known to be there is also this. So simultaneously, there is a narrow view that I have a firm opinion is true, and then there is a bigger perspective of vastness. And I'm showing the atoms and the star system because the closest analogy we have to emptiness or boundlessness is space. So let's go back to this, the picture of the forest. All the last couple of years, there have been so many fights in my neighborhood about this forest. You know, there's a huge community fight because it's owned by the town. It was supposed to never be touched. Then the town paid for all the diseased trees to be moved away. Then that caused water problems. But there was such an anger being generated and sides being taken. In some degree, because we only see it like this, when it is also like this. We're talking about shifts in space. And shifts in space having an effect on ecosystem. But the anger is being generated relative to views, intellectual beliefs about the specificity of the visible tree, things labeled tree. Okay, so this is an example just of what we believe we're perceiving is unique to our karmic circumstances and our group karma, and is very, very limited. So let's say if my dog were here and looking at the same landscape, my dog would be smelling. My dog doesn't relate to visual things at all. My dog's relationship to perception is primarily smell. So what I'm saying is, if I were to say there is a tree outside my window, that is a tiny, limited piece of what uniquely I have narrowed my version to call something like this. All right, so that's the reference side. Then on my side, I firmly believe I'm seeing this. It's like I have a picture in my mind that mirrors the picture on the computer. I'm looking out, that is what I see. Even though it absolutely could not be possible, it is as though there's a color picture inside my head. But that is so very narrow. This is what's going on inside my head. Our brains are certainly not our consciousness, but our brains are the organ that are facilitating perception, and they are a flux of millions of responses. In Buddhism, we say 75 moments of perception a second. So we have the duality of samsara that we think is this, but it is this meeting this, or meeting this. This meeting this. So when we're considering that we're triggered, it's as though time stops. And we get a picture or a memory in our mind that we concretize and like carve in stone. And it's the only thing we think about, and we think about it over and over again. They did this to me, they said this to me, it's their fault, they're wrong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that is the common relative perspective as we're mindlessly navigating our world. However, if we can start to shift our allegiance from our ignorance, which is this very narrow view, to our vastness, to the nature of our mind, the nature of the manifesting appearances that is meeting with our mind, then we are, instead of freezing and whittling the moment down, whittling the thought down, we are dancing with a magical display that is ever shifting, ever changing. And think of the difference just in the word from being triggered. You can almost feel your whole body start to freeze, and the word magical dance. You can feel your body soften, relax, and start to open. So we have the relative and the absolute at this moment simultaneously present, a co-emergent experience, but in the midst of the ignorance and the confusion, the nature of that confusion and ignorance is always wisdom, is always emptiness. Emptiness and wisdom are all English words for this boundless openness that is the context, the holder for this whole display arising. And because there is wisdom emptiness, anything can arise. And that anything that arises, even if we were to look scientifically at how our brain functions, is this extraordinary, just second by second shifting moments of the whole flux of what might be happening in our consciousness. So when we're triggered, it's as though we want to stop everything, freeze it on just like, oh, let's freeze it on just this narrow, tiny little blue spot. Let's stop the movie right on this one irritating factor. As opposed to, there can be a delight in the dance once we know the dance of what we're experiencing is impermanence manifesting in appearances, our karma manifesting in appearances, and how we relate determines the next moment of appearances. We are in our response determining what is the shift in pattern in the next moment. So if we are narrowing and moving into a freezing, judging, blaming, guilting, however you want to describe it, angering, etc., then we're reinforcing the pattern of confusion and reinforcing a confused perception. If we, in the moment of being triggered, relax, step back, look at the impermanence of that moment, look at the bigger picture, even if it's looking at the sky beyond the trees, finding a way to look at a bigger picture, to expand, to recall that we are in this shifting dance of impermanence that's not fixed. Emptiness is the opposite of being fixed and still, or fixed and frozen, let's say. Emptiness is the potential for movement. So if we find a way to relate, maybe conceptually, not with the verb, to, oh, we're relating to this at the same time as we're seeing this, then over time our habit starts to be relating to the bigger picture instead of the smaller, narrower, very, very limited picture. There was an incident that hurt me. There's a memory of an incident that hurt me that is arising on this beautiful sunny day when I'm in this wonderful Dharma Sangha and hearing about things that are freeing. Which do I want to relate to? Do I want to freeze into that memory, stop listening, stop participating, stop looking out the window at the sunlight and go just into that memory? Or do I want to expand the picture and start to, even if it's just, well, if this is my brain, can I relate to the beauty of the capacity of all the perceptions to shift instead of being frozen in one moment? So each person will learn their own way to take in the Dharma and take in some of these concepts that are certainly not part of our culture. At the same time, they are reinforced by our science. So it's a process of opening the door a little bit more each day to a bigger picture and finding a way that helps us with our pattern, even if it seems like it's only incremental on any given day or in any given moment. Even to think that I don't have to be trapped. I don't have to stay in this moment of being triggered. I have the capacity to see it as a delight. And the first step towards delight is remembering thoughts are empty, remembering thoughts are impermanent, remembering thoughts by their nature are wisdom. Even a confused thought, the awareness, the capacity for awareness is wisdom. And we were talking about the end of the class of, someone was in a difficult situation and they followed all the steps as though it's a guarantee. Learning about the helpful skills and the underlying physical base upon which the skills rest starts to, in just the same way the four dharmas of Gampopa turn our mind towards the Dharma, starts to train us when we're triggered to turn our mind towards the Dharma. And as we, every day, every week, gain more experience, then how we understand our stuck points and how we understand the skills, how to use the skills, and how we understand the philosophical foundation keep shifting, so there is a greater degree of subtlety, and then over time we start habituating ourselves towards our wisdom instead of habituating ourselves towards our confusion. So there'll be another time where we'll have the opportunity to go very deeply into this foundational philosophy. But for today, we're just entertaining the idea. Then instead of being trapped and drowning in the outer circumstances, that the way we relate to it can shift towards delight in the moment. And the more we build confidence in our capacity to dance with what is the display we're experiencing, the less frozen and trapped we will be in our unique habits that cause us suffering. So I'd like to stop there. And in the end of the class last week, I invited you to call to mind something that was fairly consistently a minor trigger for you. And I gave the example of Venerable Palmo and the squirrels stealing her bird food every day, and how every day it made her angry. So calling to mind something that just every time triggers you, and putting that together with how can you shift to a larger perspective in that moment. A larger perspective that strikes your sense of humor, strikes your sense of mystery, of your curiosity, gives you a breath of fresh air. How can you take what this chapter offers and how I've given a perspective of how to think about it, how might you give yourself a perspective of how to open and relax in those moments? So let's take about 10 minutes or so to really just think about that.